go back in time and take a look at some scary shit. What's up, you kumquats? It's Gage, and we're back with another episode of Combogasm, the series where I like to take a trip back into the time machine, take a look at old decks, take a look at a combo, and talk about just kind of the history of the deck, and where it kind of dropped off. Today's episode, we're taking a look at one of the most infamous decks in history that has stood the test of time for many, many years, and that is Infernity. Infernity has been a deck for a very, very long time, which I believe actually was around the start of 2012 is when we start to see this deck. But actually, it's gone through many iterations, first being a synchro-based deck, and then eventually moving itself into the new era of XYZs and also doing significantly well. However, one thing has remained constant, and that's the fact that the deck revolves around you having no cards in your hand to activate extremely powerful effects and really just flood the board time and time again and do really stupid loops and shit. God, it's so scary. From Trishula loops to setting up literally unbreakable boards, Infernity has done it all, and it's done it all throughout the course of several years. It's actually done so much that it's actually taken the World Championship title in 2014. The deck has really covered ground, and it's done it very well. But whether you like to admit it or not, Infernity is a deck that carries a long legacy with it, not only doing significant damage in the synchro format, but also really easily transitioning into the XYZ format upon the release of cards such as Lavalval Chain and Leviar the Sea Dragon. But enough talking about the history of the deck, let's go take a look at one of my favorite decks from 2013, and that just happens to be the year we had Shockmaster, as well as 3 Barrier and 3 Archfiend to us still. Very crazy format, and I just like to take a look at one of my favorite deck lists. Alright guys, we're actually taking a look at the top 32 UK national lists from Pewsly. I believe Pewsly was a YouTuber back in the day, but this deck list is actually courtesy of Olympia Yo, and I'm pretty sure you guys all know his channel. Give him a subscription if you haven't, but this list actually comes from him, and I really like this list. I really like the way Infernity played back in 2013 when we had access to cards like 3 Barrier still, as well as 3 Archfiend. Lots of crazy things you could do with this deck. We can't forget the fact that we had access to cards like Lavalval Chain, easily one of the most infamous combo makers of all time. This card is probably going to stay forbidden for the near future. Even though I like it a lot, I don't foresee this card really coming off the list anytime soon. But the thing that really broke this deck was the fact that you can make Shockmaster with it rather easily. If you guys don't remember what this card did back in the day, you could actually detach material from it, and then cards and effects of any type of thing you called monster, spell, or trap could not be activated until the end of your opponent's next turn. So what you would do is just during main phase 2 or the final phases of your turn, you would activate Shockmaster and call whatever you pleased. If you're afraid of any of the board wipes, you call Dark Hole. If you were afraid of any monster effects, anything big happening, you would just call monsters. Or if you wanted to push for game through potential trap cards like Mirror Force or anything, which was still pretty popular back then, you just call traps and you just push for game, no fear at all. Card was really broken. A lot of people will tell you that this card was a game changer back when it was released in the Jump promos. But we also had a lot of different things accessed in this deck here. We had cards like Monster Reborn, which is obviously just a very broken card. We also had Heavy Storm, and a lot of spell and trap removal back then was played in this deck in particular, just because having the prevalence of spells and traps made it really difficult for you to go off your combos. But if you were able to clear it with cards like Heavy Storm, or of course the Night Beams and the Space Typhoons, you were easily able to just push for game, no fear. And that's ideally what you really wanted to do. There was a lot of really potent trap cards back then. Of course, we had the 2 Bottomlesses, 2 Tarantulas. We still had Judgment back then. It was just a lot of options to play against, a lot of really good trap cards, so people would end up playing a lot of spell and trap removal to work around that. Mermail was pretty prevalent too. Night Beam was really good against Mermail, where you could just Night Beam the sphere and not have to worry about Abyss Lind coming out, which would eventually float. So lots of different things you could do with this deck. With an Archfiend at 3, it was just really crazy the amount of advantage you were able to pull off on a turn. Key combo pieces were, like I said, Lavalval Chain, Shockmaster, but also Diamond Direwolf served a pretty interesting purpose back then, really different than the one we have now. You would actually use Diamond Direwolf to pop some of your own cards to not only put cards into the graveyard to use with Launcher, but you would also pop cards to just open up board space. Very important stuff to use there. Great card and everything. Really, I really enjoyed this deck back in 2013. I do think it was very degenerate, just making Shockmaster and pretty much saying I win. But that was pretty much the epitome of the format back then. I don't know what the exact word I was looking for, but that's what the format was, actually ended up being, as long as Shockmaster was in the game. So yeah, this is again Pewsley's 2013 top 32 UK Nats deck. Thank you to Olintio for, of course, providing the deck list, and let's take it back to the camera. So as you could probably tell, the game's really changed since then. A lot has been forbidden, limited, what have you. The game's really evolved from them. However, I'd like to take your attention back to that deck and show you guys a combo from that deck that ends you with a board of, I think it's like Lavalval Chain, Shockmaster, plus a set live barrier. Keep in mind, Shockmaster was easily one of the best cards back then, and it has stayed forbidden since it was first put on the list. Without further ado, let me take you back to Dueling Book, and let's get into it. Alright guys, I'm going to show you guys a little combo back from 2013, take a little trip in the time machine here, and this was one of my favorite combos that would actually end you with a live barrier, a Shockmaster that was negating spells for the rest of the game, well, the rest of the turn there, and a Lavalval Chain plus a Leviar, the Sea Dragon on the field. We're not under Master Rule 4, this was way back in the game when we still could just flood the board with everything, but it was a 3-card combo. This is like kind of, just one of my favorite combos. I don't necessarily pick out the bread and butter combos, I just pick out the ones that I like, and this is one that I actually liked a lot. Dark Grepher was searchable by your Rhoda in the deck, and of course these 2 cards, this was played as 2 of, and this was played as a 3 of. So when this did happen though, you could actually make some pretty nutty things, but the thing about this deck is there was always a lot of options. The deck had a whole plethora of combos depending on what hand you had. It's like the DDD of back in the day. It really just depends on what your hand is for what you can make. There's really no set combos for them, and that's really what very much applied to this deck. But here's just a little taste of what the deck could do back then. One of my favorite combos. So what you would do is you would normal summon your Dark Grepher and use Dark Grepher's effect to pitch your Stygian Street Patrol and dump a monster from your deck, which you would then dump an Infernity Archfiend from your deck. You would then banish your Stygian Street Patrol to special summon the Infernity Necromancer, which you would then activate its effect to special summon Infernity Archfiend, and then you would use Infernity Archfiend to add another Necromancer to your hand. There's a lot of different options with this. Like I said, there's a lot of different options you can do too. You could add an Infernity launcher to your hand. You get out a barrier to your hand, do some other plays. There's just so many different options you can do with this deck. But you would actually then take your 2 level 4 monsters and make one of my favorite cards, Lavalval Chain. You would then activate Lavalval Chains, detaching the Necromancer, Archfiend, very important to attach Archfiend to send a card from the deck to the graveyard. You would then send the 2nd copy of Stygian Street Patrol, and you would activate that effect to then special summon the other Necromancer from your hand, activating the Necromancer to add the Archfiend to your hand. Then activate Archfiend, and you would add another copy of Archfiend to your hand, which you would then take the 2 level 3 Necromancers to make a Leviar Sea Dragon and do crazy stuff with Leviar, which is detach and special summon Stygian Street Patrol. Then take these 2 fellas here, and actually, instead of making a Lavalval Chain, which you might think you might do, you actually would make Diamond Direwolf. And you would use Diamond Direwolf to target itself and Leviar the Sea Dragon. This then puts a Stygian Street Patrol into the graveyard, which you would then activate to special summon your Archfiend from your hand, which would then activate that effect to add the launcher to the hand, which is still one of the most broken cards in Infernity today, if not the most broken. You would activate the launcher to target the 2 Necromancers in your graveyard, special summoning both copies, and then use one of the Necromancers to special summon the Archfiend, which this Archfiend would then get your last copy of Infernity Archfiend from your deck to your hand, since it is at 3. You would then take your 2 Necromancers and make another Leviar the Sea Dragon. Using Leviar the Sea Dragon, you would detach, target one of your Stygian Street Patrols, and then, oh look, it's that magic number of 3 level 4s on the board. We'd take all 3 of them, stack them on top of each other, and make the infamous Number 16, Shockmaster. You would then activate Shockmaster to detach Stygian Street Patrol, specifically Stygian Street Patrol, and call spells. You can't call monsters because then that would conflict with the last part of the combo, which is to banish that Street Patrol, special summon the Archfiend, and add a barrier from our deck to our hand. You can set the barrier, and that's pretty much the basis of the combo there. Pretty cool combo. I like this one a lot. And it's just a really disgusting board to end on. Your opponent doesn't have access to their board clears to be able to wipe this monstrosity of a board. It doesn't really seem like they're going to be doing much because you have an Archfiend backed with a barrier, which you can negate absolutely anything that might be a problem. We didn't have Kaijus back in the game back then. It was just a very difficult thing to deal with back then. Board clears, I mean, big boards like this were actually difficult to deal with. And then Shockmaster, if Shockmaster lived more than one a turn, it was pretty much assumed you were probably going to actually win the game at that point, because then Shockmaster can negate, again, whatever you'd like. Like I said before, it can negate trap cards to really push through back row if that's your opponent's only hope, still locking them out of the game pretty much. Or you can negate monster effects if you're scared of gores or something like that. Lots of options this deck had. And again, I reiterate again, there's so many combos for this deck. There were so many different options in that combo I showed you. That's not just the bread and butter. You could do whatever you want with that combo. There's just so many different things you could do and end up on boards just as good, or variations of boards like this. This is just one of my favorite ones because I do like ending with this board a lot. I think it's colorful, and I do like the just the way it's set up. So yeah, that's just one of the combos back from 2013 Infernities. Hope you guys enjoyed that combo. Thanks to Doug for opening the solitaire room for me. Appreciate it as always, handsome. Let's take it back to the camera, guys. So there you have it. That's just a small fragment of the long history that Infernity has left with us. I hope you guys really enjoyed the video. I really enjoyed doing this series and sharing some crazy combos with you guys. If you guys liked the video, be sure to like the video, thumbs up the video, and express that you enjoyed the video. Subscribe to the channel for more Yu-Gi-Oh content I upload regularly. Be sure to follow my Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and especially Twitch. I'm doing a lot more streaming on there. Links to all those can be found below. Pack winner, that's you. Shoot me a PM. If you don't live in the US, do not shoot me a PM. It's not efficient for, cost effective, excuse me, for me to ship your pack overseas. That was really fragmented, but you see what I'm saying. That being said, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I will catch you guys next time. Thanks for watching, guys. Nim Nim, signing out.